A 70-year-old man with a cane stumbles in a shopping mall as two security guards shove him to the ground, laughing at his disability. They smirk, thinking it's just another power trip. What they don't know, he's Colonel Michael Hayes. Their empire is about Crumble, Albuquerque, New Mexico, where desert winds carry both the scent of sage and the weight of forgotten sacrifices. Colonel Michael Hayes shuffled through Cottonwood Mall, his military straight posture betrayed only by his slight limp and the oak cane that had become his unwanted companion. At 70, his weathered face told the story of a man who had seen more in one lifetime than most could imagine in 10. The silver hair cropped in a fade that hadn't changed in 5 decades. The eyes, sharp blue that missed nothing, surveyed the mall with a tactical assessment of someone who had once commanded men in the jungles of Vietnam. As the former commander of one of Delta Force's earliest units, Hayes had led missions that remain classified even today. His left leg had been shattered by enemy fire during an extraction mission in 1971. 3 surgeries later, he walked again, but never without pain, a constant reminder of the 19 men he'd carried to safety before taking the bullet himself. These days, Colonel Hayes served as an advisor to the Veterans Affairs Office, helping young soldiers transition to civilian life. It wasn't commanding a Special Forces unit, but it gave purpose to his twilight years. He wore that purpose like his medals, with quiet pride. Today's mission brought him to Cottonwood Mall to meet Jason Ramirez, a 28-year-old Afghanistan veteran who'd called in distress after being accused of shoplifting. Hayes believed the young man's story, that security had profiled him because of his military tattoos and PTSD-induced nervousness. Hayes spotted Jason sitting tensely on a bench near the food court, 2 security guards standing over him. The younger guard, whose name tag read Blackwell, was poking a finger into Jason's chest. The older one, Turner, stood with arms crossed, a smirk stretching across his face. Hayes straightened his back, ignoring the pain shooting through his hip. Some battles couldn't be avoided. Hayes approached the scene wearing khaki slacks and a simple blue button-down shirt, civilian clothes that hid the warrior beneath. Nothing about his appearance suggested anything beyond an elderly man concerned about a disturbance. "Is there a problem here?" Hayes asked, his voice still carrying the natural command that had once directed special operations. Blackwell barely glanced at him. "Mall business. Move along, Grandpa." Hayes observed Jason's military bearing. The young man was sitting at attention despite his distress, a familiar posture of respect under pressure. "I believe this young man is a veteran," Hayes said evenly. "Perhaps I can help resolve whatever misunderstanding has occurred." Turner turned, sizing up Hayes with dismissive eyes. "Listen, old-timer, this isn't your business." This guy was acting suspicious around the electronics store. "I was just looking at a phone for my mom," Jason protested. "I have money right here." Hayes stepped closer. "I'm meeting Mr. Ramirez to discuss veteran services. I can vouch for him." "And who exactly are you?" Blackwell challenged, squaring his shoulders in a display of authority. "Just a concerned citizen," Hayes replied calmly. Turner laughed. "Well, concerned citizen, unless you want security escorting you out too. Back off. We've had enough trouble with these so-called veterans causing problems." The contempt in Turner's voice when he said veterans made Hayes' jaw tighten. The first shots had been fired in what would become a much larger battle. These men risked their lives serving this country, Hayes said, the edge in his voice barely contained. They deserve respect, not suspicion. Blackwell stepped away from Jason and toward Hayes, invading his personal space. He towered over the older man, using his height as intimidation. "You have no idea what we deal with every day. Old man, playing the veteran card doesn't work here." Hayes stood his ground. Decades of facing down threats from enemies far more dangerous than an overzealous security guard holding him steady. "I'm simply suggesting a more respectful approach," Hayes replied. Turner joined his partner. "Respectful? You want respect for this guy? We got a job to do keeping this place safe." When Hayes didn't back down, Blackwell's face darkened. "You need to learn your place, Grandpa." The shove came without warning. Not particularly hard, but enough to unbalance a 70-year-old man with a bad leg. Hayes' cane slipped on the polished floor as he tumbled backward. landing hard on his hip. Pain shot through his old wound as his cane clattered away. A small crowd had gathered, smartphone cameras raised. Blackwell laughed. "Look at that. America's finest, huh?" He affected an exaggerated limp, mocking Hayes' disability. Turner joined in. "Sorry, Gramps. Did you fall and can't get up?" More laughter. Jason started to stand, but Hayes caught his eye and subtly shook his head. "Not yet." With deliberate dignity, Hayes pushed himself up, refusing offer hands from onlookers. His teeth clenched against the pain as he slowly reached for his cane. "You shouldn't be out without your nurse, old-timer," Blackwell called, earning scattered nervous laughter from the crowd. "Maybe you should go back to the retirement home before you break a hip." Hayes finally stood, his eyes cold but calm. The security guards had no idea what storm they had just unleashed. Hayes straightened his shirt and looked Blackwell directly in the eyes. Without breaking eye contact, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. He flipped it open to reveal a Veterans Affairs ID and another card partially visible behind it. "I am a veteran," Hayes said quietly, "as is Mr. Ramirez here." Blackwell glanced at the ID dismissively. "So what? You think that gives you special rights? We've got a job to do." "I understand jobs and duty better than you might think," Hayes replied. Turner snorted. Another old guy living off war stories. Probably embellished to get free meals on Veterans Day. A woman in the crowd gasped at the disrespect. Hayes smiled thinly, pocketing his ID. "Young man, I'm going to leave now with Mr. Ramirez. But I want you to know something. I will be back." "Is that a threat?" Blackwell stepped forward again. "No," Hayes said, his voice suddenly carrying the weight of command that had once directed elite soldiers through impossible missions. "It's a promise." As Hayes limped away with Jason beside him, he heard Turner call out, "Don't forget your diaper next time, hero." Hayes didn't turn back. He didn't need to. The battle had just begun. The next morning, the security office at Cottonwood Mall received a call from the front desk. Someone was asking to speak with the head of security and mall management immediately. When Blackwell and Turner arrived at the management office, they found the mall director looking uncharacteristically nervous. Across the conference table sat the man they'd humiliated yesterday, though he was almost unrecognizable. Colonel Michael Hayes sat ramrod straight in his full dress uniform. The green jacket adorned with ribbons and medals told a story few living Americans could match. The Silver Star, Bronze Star with V for Valor, 3 Purple Hearts, the Vietnam Service Medal, and others that formed a colorful tapestry of courage across his chest. He wasn't alone. Flanking him were 3 men in suits from the Veterans Affairs office, a woman with a press badge from the Albuquerque Journal, and most intimidatingly, a tall man in the current Army dress uniform with colonel's eagles on his shoulders. "Gentlemen," the mall director began shakily. "This is Colonel Michael Hayes, former commander of Special Operations Detachment Delta, Medal of Honor recipient, and apparently the man you encountered yesterday." Blackwell's face drained of color. Turner's smirk vanished. "And this," the director continued, "is Colonel James Wilson, current commander of the Special Operations Training Facility at Fort Bragg, who flew in this morning specifically for this meeting." Colonel Wilson's face remained impassive, but his eyes burned with controlled anger. "Please sit down," Hayes said calmly, gesturing to the empty chairs. The security guards sank into their seats as Hayes opened a laptop. "Before we begin, I'd like to show you something." The screen displayed a compilation of security footage, dozens of incidents showing Blackwell, Turner, and other guards in their company harassing elderly shoppers, veterans wearing military apparel, and minorities. In one particularly disturbing clip, Turner was seen confiscating a Vietnam veteran's cane, claiming it could be used as a weapon, leaving the man stranded. "This is just a sample of what we collected," Hayes said. "And now, I'd like to discuss your systematic harassment of veterans and elderly citizens in this mall." The empire of intimidation that Blackwell and Turner had built was beginning to crumble. Within hours of the meeting, Securex, the company employing Blackwell and Turner, dispatched their regional director to contain the situation. He arrived with company lawyers offering Hayes a settlement, a 5-figure check, and a private apology in exchange for confidentiality. Hayes declined without hesitation. That evening, Hayes' home phone rang. "Drop this crusade, old man," said a distorted voice. "Not everyone respects your ancient metals. Accidents happen to stubborn people." Hayes thanked the caller for confirming Securex's corruption and calmly hung up. By morning, his mailbox had been smashed, and "Forgotten War, Forgotten Man" was spray-painted on his garage door. His car had deep scratches along both sides. The intimidation attempts backfired spectacularly. When Hayes called his old Vietnam unit's monthly breakfast to cancel due to vandalism, he mentioned the reason casually. By noon, 6 Vietnam veterans were repainting his garage, while 3 others replaced his mailbox. By evening, a rotation schedule for watching his house had been established. Word spread through veterans' networks with military efficiency. Afghanistan and Iraq veterans took night shifts in Hayes' neighborhood. A Gulf War veteran who owned a security company installed cameras around Hayes' property free of charge. The local VFW post became an impromptu headquarters for what veterans now called Operation Respect. What Securex failed to understand was that they hadn't threatened just one old man. They had awakened a brotherhood spanning generations. When photos of Hayes' vandalized property hit social media alongside images of his honored military service, the story caught fire. A local news segment turned into national coverage. Meanwhile, Hayes received calls from 4 former Securex guards, each with stories being instructed to keep the mall clear of loiterers, code for removing elderly visitors and anyone who looked suspicious, which often meant veterans with PTSD symptoms. The battle lines were drawn, and the colonel had found his new mission. The Albuquerque Convention Center's smallest meeting room had been booked for what Hayes' team called a community security discussion. But when over 200 people showed up, including representatives from 3 television networks and 2 national newspapers, they quickly relocated to the main hall. Hayes sat on stage alongside Jason Ramirez and 3 former Securex employees who had agreed to speak publicly. Behind them stood a mixed guard of honor: Vietnam veterans in their 70s, Gulf War veterans in their 50s, and Afghanistan/Iraq veterans in their 30s and 20s, a living timeline of American military service. "What began as a personal incident," Hayes began, his voice steady and clear, "has revealed a pattern of systematic abuse targeting veterans and elderly citizens." On the massive screen behind him, videos played in sequence. Securex guards mocking an elderly woman with a walker, confiscating a veteran service dog claiming no pets allowed, forcing a man with PTSD to leave when he became anxious in a crowded area. Former Securex supervisor Thomas Keene described company practices. "We were instructed to remove time wasters, code for elderly people who weren't spending much money. Management called them seat fillers and revenue blockers." Another ex-guard revealed training sessions where they were taught to identify problem demographics, which included combat veterans who might have PTSD reactions. The most damning evidence came last: an audio recording of Securex CEO Richard Blackwell, father of Guard William Blackwell, at a management retreat. "These old vets think America owes them a living," his voice boomed through the speakers. "They got free college, lifetime benefits, and they still want everyone to bow down because they played soldier 50 years ago. Our job is to make sure they don't drive paying customers away with their 1,000-yard stares and war stories." The room erupted in outrage. Veterans of different eras exchanged glances of solidarity. Hayes raised his hand for quiet. "This isn't about one incident or one company. This is about how we treat those who served and those who are aging. This is about the America we want to be." As he spoke, his phone buzzed with a news alert. Securex stock had dropped 28% in 3 hours. The response was swift and overwhelming. By that evening, hashtag Respect the Veterans and hashtag Hayes Heroes were trending nationally. Veterans across the country shared their own experiences of discrimination, creating a tidal wave of testimonials. Outside Cottonwood Mall, a peaceful gathering of veterans from every modern conflict stood in silent formation, many in uniform, some in wheelchairs, all standing at attention. The image of elderly Vietnam veterans alongside young Afghanistan veterans made for powerful television. Cottonwood Mall announced the immediate termination of their contract with Securex and issued a public apology to Colonel Hayes, Jason Ramirez, and all veterans who had experienced disrespect. Blackwell and Turner were fired. By week's end, SecureX CEO Richard Blackwell had resigned, and the company's board announced a complete restructuring and mandatory sensitivity training focused on veterans and elderly citizens. The state attorney general launched an investigation into SecureX's practices, focusing on potential discrimination against protected classes. 3 other malls in the Southwest terminated their SecureX contracts. Most surprisingly, William Blackwell, the guard who had pushed Hayes, requested a meeting. Hayes agreed to see him at the Veterans Affairs office. "I was wrong," the young man admitted, unable to meet Hayes' eyes. "My father always talked about veterans like they were looking for handouts. I never questioned it." Hayes studied him for a long moment. "The true measure of a person isn't in never making mistakes," he finally said. "It's in how you respond when you realize you've made one." Blackwell nodded slowly. "I'd like to learn, to understand better." It was a beginning. 6 months later, Colonel Hayes stood at a podium in Cottonwood Mall Central Court, cutting a ribbon for the new Veterans and Community Rest Area, a comfortable space specifically designed for elderly shoppers and veterans needing a quiet place to decompress. The mall had implemented a pioneering Respect and Recognize program, training staff to assist veterans experiencing PTSD symptoms and creating age-friendly shopping initiatives that other malls were now adopting nationwide. State legislators had introduced the Hayes Act, establishing new protections against age and veteran status discrimination. Most remarkably, William Blackwell now worked for the Veterans Outreach Program, helping bridge understanding between civilians and military personnel. What happened here wasn't just about one incident, Hayes told the assembled crowd. It was about recognizing humanity and dignity in every person who walks through these doors, regardless of their age or background. The applause that followed wasn't just for his words. It was for the change they had created together. Sometimes standing up for respect creates ripples that change society. When we honor our elders and veterans, we build a better world for everyone. Have you ever witnessed disrespect toward veterans or elderly citizens? How did you respond? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories about everyday heroes standing for dignity and respect.